1. We've got a real treat for you, a 1953 Ford Victoria that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for just $13,000. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Is this thing even roadworthy? Well, let me tell you, this classic beauty has been given some serious love and attention. First off, let's talk about that engine. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 289 V8 that's been paired with a Mustang T5 manual transmission. And if that's not enough to get your heart racing, check out the 8.8 Ford rear end with 2.79 gears. This thing is built for speed, baby. But it's not just about raw power. The seller has also made sure that this Victoria is running like a top. They've installed a new Champion 3-row aluminum radiator, a new SPAL fan, and a new Edelbrock Performer intake and AVS2 500 CFM carb. Plus, they've thrown in new radiator hoses, NGKV power spark plugs, Taylor Street Thunder spark plug wires, and a new air cleaner. Oh, and did I mention the new Flex Light mechanical fan and Edelbrock fuel pump? Yeah, this thing is ready to roll. Now, I know some of you might be worried about the condition of a car this old, but fear not. The seller has gone above and beyond to make sure that this Victoria is in tip-top shape. They've rebuilt the Fatman Mustang 2 front end with Fatman stainless steel A-arms and a flaming river rack and pinion. They've also installed new front disc brakes and rear drum brakes, as well as a new dual exhaust system with Thrush glass pack mufflers. And let's not forget about those little details that make all the difference. The seller has added new hood hinges, new Coker radial bias look tires, a new Luke clutch and throwout bearing, and even rebuilt the rear end with Timken roller bearings. They've also thrown in a new chrome low-car gas pedal and some sweet DeSoto hubcaps. Now, I'll be honest with you, the odometer is broken, so we don't know exactly how many miles this baby has on it, but with all the work that's been done, does it really matter? This thing is a piece of automotive history, and it's ready to hit the road and turn some heads. So if you're in the market for a classic car that's been given a new lease on life, look no further than this 1953 Ford Victoria with a clean title and a price tag of just $13,000. This is a deal that you won't want to miss. Trust me, you'll be the talk of the town when you roll up in this beauty. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and make this Victoria yours today. 2, we're diving into the world of classic American muscle with this 1966 Buick Special that's up for sale on Craigslist. Now, I'm gonna be straight with you. This car isn't perfect. In fact, it's got a salvage title, which means it's seen some better days. But before you write it off, let's take a closer look at what this beast has to offer. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 4.9L V8 engine that's ready to roar to life, and with a rear-wheel drive setup, you know this thing is built for some serious fun on the road. The seller mentions that it runs and drives, which is always a good sign. However, they do note that there's a leak in the rear seal, so that's something to keep in mind. Now let's talk about the exterior. The black paint job is going to need some work, as the seller admits that it needs a fresh coat, but hey, that just means you've got a blank canvas to work with and make this car truly your own, and who doesn't love a good project car? Moving on to the interior, the seller says it's already been done up, which is a big plus. There's nothing worse than sinking time and money into a car only to realize that the inside is a total mess. So kudos to the seller for taking care of that. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What's the catch? Well, there are a couple of things to consider. First off, the odometer reads 123,456 miles. While that might seem like a lot, it's important to remember that this is a classic car we're talking about. These things were built to last, and with proper care and maintenance, they can keep on running for years to come. The other thing to keep in mind is the price. The seller is asking $9,000 for this Buick Special, which might seem a bit steep for a car with a salvage title. However, they do mention that they need to sell it ASAP, so there may be some wiggle room for negotiation. At the end of the day, this 1960X Buick Special is a classic piece of American muscle that's just waiting for the right person to come along and give it the love and attention it deserves. Sure, it's got some flaws, but that's all part of the charm, and with a bit of elbow grease and some TLC, this thing could be a real head turner out on the road. So if you're in the market for a project car with a ton of potential, this Buick Special might just be the one for you. Just be prepared to put in some work and have a bit of patience, but trust me, the end result will be worth it. 3. We've got a real blast from the past, a 1979 Lincoln Mark V that's looking for a new home. This classic beauty is up for grabs on Craigslist for just $8,000, and let me tell you, it's got some serious potential. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller says it's in good shape, and they've even put in some work to make sure it's running smoothly. They've replaced the gas tank sending unit, master cylinder, and carburetor, among other parts. That's always a good sign when you're dealing with a classic car. It shows that the owner has put in the effort to keep it in top form. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but what about the mileage? Well, the seller does mention that the odometer has rolled over, so we don't know exactly how many miles this baby has on it. But here's the thing, they also say that they've only driven it about 500 miles in the 3 years they've owned it. That's practically nothing in classic car terms. So what else can we say about this Lincoln Mark V? Well, it's got a clean title, which is always a plus, and with an automatic transmission and gas fuel, it's a pretty straightforward ride. The seller doesn't mention anything about the paint color or interior, but based on the photos, it looks like it's in decent shape. Now, I know $8,000 might seem like a lot for a car that's over 40 years old, but hear me out. This is a piece of American automotive history we're talking about. The Lincoln Mark V was a real icon back in the day, with its bold, boxy styling and luxurious features. And with the work that's already been done to keep it running strong, this could be a real gem for the right buyer. Of course, as with any classic car, there are going to be some things that need attention. The seller doesn't go into a ton of detail about what else might need to be done, so it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a purchase. But if you're handy with a wrench and have a passion for classic American cars, this could be a really fun project to take on. At the end of the day, this 1979 Lincoln Mark V is a real head turner that's just waiting for someone to give it the love and attention it deserves. And with the seller looking to make some space in their garage, now might be the perfect time to snap it up. So if you're in the market for a classic ride with plenty of potential, why not take a closer look at this Lincoln? Who knows, it might just be the start of a beautiful friendship. 4, we've got a real treat for you, a 1984 Ford Mustang LX Coupe that's up for grabs on Craigslist. But this isn't just any old Mustang, it's an ex-highway patrol vehicle straight out of Washington State, complete with the coveted SSP Special Service Package designation. Now, I know what you might be thinking, a former cop car? Is this thing even in good shape? Well, let me tell you, this Fox body notch is a real gem. The seller has been using it as their daily driver, which is always a good sign. It means that this car has been well maintained and kept in running order. Under the hood, you'll find the original 5.0 motor and T5 transmission, which is a real plus for any Mustang enthusiast. And with just 137,000 original miles on the odometer, this car has plenty of life left in it. Of course, as with any vehicle that's seen some action on the road, there are a few cosmetic imperfections to note. The seller mentions some patina on the roof and trunk, but hey, that just adds to the character of this classic ride. And the best part, there's no rust underneath, which is a real rarity for a car of this age. Now, let's talk price. The seller is asking $8,500 or best offer for this Mustang, which might seem a bit steep at first glance. However, When you consider the rarity of the SSP package and the overall condition of the car, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. Plus, the seller is open to trades, so if you've got something cool to offer up, this could be your chance to snag a real piece of Mustang history. Overall, this 1984 Ford Mustang LX Coupe is a real head-turner that's sure to get plenty of attention out on the road. With its classic Fox body styling, powerful 5.0 motor, and unique SSP designation, this car is a true standout in the world of classic Mustangs. And while it may have a few battle scars from its days on the highway patrol, that just adds to its rugged charm. So if you're in the market for a classic Mustang with a bit of extra attitude, this might just be the car for you. The seller has pics and videos available for interested buyers, so why not take a closer look and see if this Fox body notch is the one you've been waiting for? Trust me, you won't be disappointed. 5. We've got a real beauty for you, a 1967 Plymouth Fury that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this thing is in excellent condition. First off, let's talk about the mechanicals. The seller says that this Fury is in very good shape under the hood, with a smooth running 383 V8 engine and an automatic transmission that shifts like a dream, and with just 88,600 miles on the odometer, this car has plenty of life left in it. But it's not just about what's under the hood. This Fury is a real looker, too. The yellow paint job is sure to turn heads wherever you go, and the chrome bumpers and trim are in fantastic shape. The seller even mentions that the vinyl top is still soft and supple, which is a real rarity for a car of this age. Inside, the interior is just as impressive. The dash pad has been completely redone by Just Dashes, and everything else looks to be in great shape. The only thing that might need a bit of attention is the air conditioning, which has a slow leak. But hey, that's an easy fix, and the seller even offers to take care of it for you if you're interested in buying. Now, I know some of you might be worried about rust. After all, this is a classic car we're talking about, but fear not. The seller says that the body is clean and rust-free, with only some minor surface rust under the trunk mat, and even that is an easy fix that the seller is willing to take care of if you're not up for the task. So, what's the catch? Well, there really isn't one. This Fury comes with a clean title and tags that are good until December 2024, and the seller is even including both of the original plates in great condition. And if you're not local, no worries. The seller is willing to hold the car for up to a month if you need to arrange for shipping. Of course, as with any classic car, it's always a good idea to come and inspect it in person before making a purchase. But based on the seller's description and the photos they've provided, this 1967 Plymouth Fury seems like a real gem, and at just $95,100, it's a bargain for a car of this caliber. So if you're in the market for a classic American muscle car that's been well maintained and is ready to hit the road, this Fury might just be the one for you. Don't miss out on this opportunity to own a piece of automotive history. Get in touch with the seller today and make this beauty yours. 6. We've got a real classic up for grabs, a 1980 Chevy Corvette C3 that's looking for a new home. This beauty is being offered up on Craigslist for just $600, and while it may need a bit of work, it's got plenty of potential. First off, let's talk about what's under the hood. This Corvette is powered by a 305 V8 small block engine, which is paired with an automatic transmission, and with just 91,000 original miles on the odometer, this car has plenty of life left in it. Now, I know what you might be thinking, a car from 1980, is it even in good shape? Well, the seller is upfront about the fact that this Corvette is going to need some minor work. They mentioned that it's been sitting for a while and will need some interior work, but overall the car looks very good. One of the coolest features of this Corvette is the color combo. The original owner ordered it in a stunning burgundy on burgundy, which is sure to turn heads wherever you go, and if you're a fan of open-air driving, you'll love the glass mirror tops that come with covers. The seller has also made some recent upgrades to this Corvette, including brand new wheels, tires, and brakes. So, while it may need a bit of TLC, it's got a solid foundation to build on. Now, I know $6,700 might seem like a lot for a car that needs work, but when you consider the fact that this is a classic Corvette with low mileage and a clean California title, it starts to look like a pretty sweet deal. Plus, the seller is located in American Canyon, California, which means you might be able to score a nice road trip out of the deal if you're not local. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to go and check it out in person before making a decision. The seller is encouraging potential buyers to reach out anytime with questions, but they do note that they're not interested in trades or texting, just good old-fashioned phone calls. At the end of the day, this 1980 Chevy Corvette C3 is a real piece of American automotive history. It may not be in perfect condition, but with a bit of elbow grease and some love, it could be a real showstopper, and at just $600-700, it's a bargain for anyone who's been dreaming of owning a classic Corvette. 7. We've got a real blast from the past, a 1971 Ford Pinto that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, a Pinto? Isn't that the car that had all those safety issues? But hear me out, because this particular Pinto is a real gem. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller says it's in good shape, and based on the description, I'm inclined to believe them. This Pinto has been garaged kept for its entire life, and it shows. The paint job is a beautiful brown color that was redone 30 years ago, but it still looks fantastic, and with only 37,500 original miles on the odometer, this car has barely been broken in. But it's not just the low mileage that makes this Pinto special, it's also a factory special edition model. That means it comes with some cool features that you won't find on your average Pinto, like rear bumper guards, a rear spoiler, and factory mag wheels. And speaking of those mag wheels, the car even comes with the original spare tire, which is a real rarity. Under the hood, you'll find a 2.0L 4-cylinder motor that's paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. The seller says the car runs amazing, and based on the recent service and new battery, I have no reason to doubt them. Now, I know $5,900 might seem like a lot for a Pinto, but hear me out. This is a rare special edition model with incredibly low mileage and a ton of original features. Plus, it comes with all the original manuals, which is a real bonus for any collector. Of course, as with any classic car, it's always a good idea to go check it out in person before making a decision. But based on the seller's description and the photos they've provided, this Pinto seems like it's in fantastic shape. So if you're in the market for a unique classic car that's sure to turn heads and start conversations, this 1971 Ford Pinto might just be the one for you. And with the seller firm on their price of $5,900, you know they're serious about finding the right buyer. At the end of the day, this Pinto is a real piece of automotive history. It may not be the most glamorous or high-performance car out there, but it's got a charm all its own, and with the right owner, it could be a real showstopper at any classic car event. 8. We're taking a look at a 1978 Dodge Magnum that's currently up for sale on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is a real beauty. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as excellent, and based on the photos, I have to agree. The red paint job is absolutely stunning, and it looks like this Magnum has been well cared for over the years. The seller even mentions that it's never been driven in the winter, which is a huge plus for any classic car enthusiast. But what really sets this Magnum apart is the fact that it's a numbers matching, all stock example. That means that all the important components like the engine and transmission are original to the car. And speaking of the engine, this Magnum is packing a powerful 8-cylinder motor that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The interior looks to be in great shape as well, with no visible signs of wear or damage. And with just over 63,000 miles on the odometer, this Magnum has plenty of life left in it. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. A Magnum, isn't that just a fancy Charger? And while it's true that the Magnum shares a lot of DNA with its Charger sibling, it's got a style all its own. The unique front end and sleek, sporty lines make it stand out from the crowd, and the XE trim package adds a touch of luxury to the mix. Of course, all this style and performance doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $13,000 for this Magnum, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the rarity and condition of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid investment. The seller does mention that they don't need any help selling the car, which is always a good sign. It means they're confident in the value of their vehicle and aren't looking to make a quick sale. So if you're in the market for a classic Mopar that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1978 Dodge Magnum might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, performance, and rarity that makes it a true collector's item. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But based on what I'm seeing here, this Magnum looks like it's ready to hit the road and start turning heads. So what are you waiting for, Mopar fans? If you've got the cash and the garage space, this 1978 Dodge Magnum XE could be the car of your dreams. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Reach out to the seller today and see if you can make a deal. Who knows, you might just end up with a piece of automotive history that you'll treasure for years to come. 9. We've got a real piece of automotive history up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1969 Chevrolet Corvair Monza. This particular model is extra special because it was produced in the final year of the Corvair's run, making it a true collector's item. Now, I'm going to be straight with you. This Corvair isn't in perfect condition. The seller describes it as fair, and based on the description, it's clear that it's going to need some work to get it back on the road. But for the right buyer, this could be an incredible opportunity to own a piece of American automotive history. Let's start with the good stuff. This Corvair comes with a ton of cool features like a telescoping steering column, shoulder straps and headrests, rear window defrost, and even a speedometer limiter. Plus, the seller has made some recent upgrades like a new battery, gas tank, fuel, hoses, plugs, wires, distributor, points, and belt. They've also rebuilt both carburetors and installed a new dual master cylinder for the drum brakes. But of course, there are some issues to be aware of. The seller mentions that the starter is hit or miss, and there are some oil and transmission leaks to contend with. The paint is also oxidized on one side of the car, and someone has sprayed primer over it. And while the glass is in good shape, the radio isn't working, although the seller hasn't looked into why. Despite these issues, there's still a lot to love about this Corvair. It's got a clean title and keys to the ignition, trunk, and glove box. It also comes with both 14-inch wheels and tires and the original 13-inch hubcaps. And while it's not quite street ready yet, the seller has gotten it running and says it goes forward, reverses, and stops well. Now let's talk price. The seller is asking $6,500 for this Corvair, which might seem steep for a car that needs work, but when you consider the rarity and historical significance of this particular model, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. Plus, the seller is open to negotiating the price in person which means you might be able to score an even better deal if you play your cards right. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. If you're serious about this Corvair, it's definitely worth going to check it out in person and getting a sense of exactly what needs to be done to get it back on the road. But if you're up for a challenge and have a passion for classic American cars, this 1969 Chevrolet Corvair Monza could be an incredible opportunity. With some elbow grease and a bit of TLC, you could have a real showstopper on your hands, and who knows, you might even be able to flip it for a profit down the line. 10. We're taking a closer look at a 1967 Ford Thunderbird that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is a real beauty. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as excellent, and based on the photos, I have to agree. This T-Bird looks absolutely stunning with a custom paint job that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with just 38,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear that this car has been well cared for over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 390 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission, and with power steering, power brakes, and power windows, this Thunderbird has all the creature comforts you could want in a classic car. But what really sets this T-Bird apart is just how clean and original it is. The seller mentions that it's a very clean, original classic car, which is a huge plus for any collector. It's clear that this car has been loved and cherished over the years, and it shows in every detail. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, a Thunderbird? Isn't that just a fancy Ford? And while it's true that the Thunderbird shares some DNA with other Ford models, it's got a style and personality all its own. The sleek, sporty lines and luxurious interior make it a true icon of the 60s, and it's a car that's sure to get people talking wherever you go. Of course, all this style and performance doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $7,900 for this Thunderbird, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the condition, originality, and rarity of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. The seller does mention that they're not interested in any trades, which is always a good sign. It means they're confident in the value of their vehicle and aren't looking to make a quick sale. And if you're serious about this T-Bird, the seller is encouraging potential buyers to call and discuss the details. No texting allowed. So if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1967 Ford Thunderbird might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, performance, and originality that makes it a true collector's item. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision, but based on what I'm seeing here, this Thunderbird looks like it's ready to hit the road and start turning heads. So what are you waiting for, classic car fans? If you've got the cash and the garage space, this 1967 Ford Thunderbird could be the car of your dreams. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Give the seller a call today and see if you can make a deal. Who knows, you might just end up with a piece of automotive history that you'll treasure for years to come. 11. We've got a real gem for you, a 1968 Ford LTD that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this thing is in fantastic shape. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as excellent, and based on the photos, I have to agree. This LTD looks absolutely stunning with a clean, classic look that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. It's clear that this car has been well maintained over the years, and it shows in every detail. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that's ready to roar to life. And with an automatic transmission, this LTD is a breeze to drive. Whether you're cruising down the highway or just running errands around town, this car is sure to put a smile on your face. But what really sets this LTD apart is just how original it is. With only 80,000 miles on the odometer, it's clear that this car has been cherished by its previous owners. And while the seller doesn't mention any specific details about the car's history, it's clear that it's been loved and cared for over the years. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, an LTD, isn't that just a fancy Ford? And while it's true that the LTD shares some DNA with other Ford models, it's got a style and personality all its own. The sleek, understated lines and spacious interior make it a true classic of the late 60s, and it's a car that's sure to get people talking wherever you go. Of course, all this style and originality doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $8,500 for this LTD, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the condition, mileage, and rarity of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. The seller doesn't mention anything about trades or financing, so it's safe to assume that this is a cash-only deal. But if you're serious about classic cars and have the funds available, this LTD is definitely worth a closer look. So if you're in the market for a classic American car that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1968 Ford LTD might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, originality, and condition that makes it a true collector's item. 12. We're taking a closer look at a 1965 Ford Galaxy XL that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is a real beauty. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, and based on the description, it's clear that this Galaxy has been well cared for over the years. The car was stored in a dry garage for a whopping 27 years and was started and run regularly during that time. That's the kind of history you want to see in a classic car. Under the hood, you'll find a great running 352 Interceptor motor that's paired with an automatic transmission. The seller says the transmission shifts great, which is always a good sign. And with rear-wheel drive, this Galaxy is sure to be a blast to drive. But what really sets this Galaxy apart is the condition of the body and interior. The seller mentions that the body is rust-free and has never been wrecked, which is a huge plus for any classic car. And the interior is in great shape too, with a carpet that's still in good condition. The only thing that needs attention is the speaker for the radio, but the seller says they may order a new one. Now let's talk about the wheels. The seller is offering the Galaxy with either the original wheels and hubcaps or a set of newer wheels. The original wheels are in great shape, but if you prefer a more modern look, you can save $500 by going with the newer set. Of course, all this style and history doesn't come cheap. The seller just dropped the price to $12,500, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the condition, rarity, and potential of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. And if it doesn't sell soon, the seller says they're going to put it up on eBay, so you might want to act fast if you're interested. The seller does mention that they need to sell the Galaxy to make more room for their other cars, which is always a good sign. It means they're motivated to make a deal and aren't just testing the waters. And they also say that they won't sell for any less than the asking price, so don't bother trying to lowball them. So if you're in the market for a classic American muscle car that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1965 Ford Galaxy XL might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, history, and potential that makes it a true collector's item. 13. We've got a real gem for you, a 1982 Chrysler Cordoba that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this thing is in fantastic shape. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as like new, and based on the description and low mileage, I'm inclined to believe them. With only 58,000 miles on the odometer and always being garage kept, this Cordoba has been pampered its whole life. That's the kind of history you want to see in a classic car. Under the hood, you'll find a 318 V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission, and with power disc brakes, cruise control, and tilt steering, This Cordoba has all the creature comforts you could want in a classic ride. Plus, the AM/FM stereo is sure to keep you entertained on those long drives, but what really sets this Cordoba apart is the overall condition. The seller mentions that it's in very good condition and the new tires are just icing on the cake. With a car like this, you could hop in and drive anywhere without worrying about breakdowns or issues. Now, let's talk about the color. The blue paint job is absolutely stunning and really makes this Cordoba stand out from the crowd. It's the kind of color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Of course, all this quality and style doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $6,000 for this Cordoba, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the condition, low mileage, and overall desirability of this particular model, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. The seller does mention that they'll only accept cash and that the title is clean, which is always a good sign. It means there are no hidden issues or surprises waiting for you down the line. So if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1982 Chrysler Cordoba might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, comfort, and quality that makes it a true collector's item. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But based on what I'm seeing here, this Cordoba looks like it's ready to hit the road and start turning heads. So what are you waiting for, classic car fans? If you've got the cash and the garage space, this 1982 Chrysler Cordoba could be the car of your dreams. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Reach out to the seller today and see if you can make a deal. Who knows, you might just end up with a piece of automotive history that you'll treasure for years to come. For 14, we're taking a closer look at a 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this thing is a real diamond in the rough. First off, let's talk about the history. This Continental was a barn find, and the seller even has the original pictures to prove it. That's the kind of provenance that really gets collectors excited. And while it's not in perfect condition, the seller has put in a lot of work to get it back on the road. The interior has been cleaned up and put back together with the exception of the armrests and window switches. The seller held off on installing the armrests until they could get the switches rebuilt, which shows a real attention to detail. And while it's missing a stereo, that's an easy fix for anyone who wants to add their own personal touch. Under the hood, the seller has gone through the car mechanically and made a ton of improvements. They've replaced all the fluids, brakes, rotors, battery, AC compressor, fuel pump, and even the rubber trunk seal. And the best part, the underneath is in great shape with minimal rusted parts. That's a real rarity for a car of this age. Now, I do have to mention a few cosmetic flaws. There's one rust hole in the rear from a leaking trunk seal, some dents in the front right fender, and a poor Bondo repair on the hood. The fenders also have a little rust, but no dents. But honestly, for a car that's over 50 years old, that's to be expected, and with a little TLC, those issues could be easily addressed. The silver paint job is a classic color for a Continental, and it really makes this car stand out. And with all the lights working on both the interior and exterior, you know this car has been well maintained. Now let's talk about how it drives. The seller says it runs and drives great, which is always a good sign. And with only 69,178 miles on the odometer, this Continental has plenty of life left in it. Of course, all this potential doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $9,500 for this Continental, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the rarity, history, and potential of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. The seller does mention that they bought this car as a project to restore and use, but they've lost interest as a new project has come their way, and with limited garage space, they need to make room. That's the kind of honesty and transparency you want to see from a seller. So if you're in the market for a classic American luxury car with a ton of potential, this 1966 Lincoln Continental Coupe might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of history, style, and potential that makes it a true collector's item. It's 15. We've got a real gem for you, a 1968 Chevrolet Corvair that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this thing is a real head turner. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as excellent, and based on the description, it's clear that this Corvair has been well cared for over the years. It's a one-owner car that's been garage kept, which is always a good sign, and with only 80,000 original miles on the odometer, this Corvair has plenty of life left in it. But what really sets this Corvair apart is the fact that it's a convertible. There's just something about cruising around with the top down that never gets old, and with a new power convertible top, you can enjoy that feeling whenever you want. The factory butternut yellow paint job is absolutely stunning, and it really makes this Corvair stand out from the crowd. And the tuxedo black interior is in great shape too, which is a real testament to how well this car has been cared for. Under the hood, you'll find a 164 Turbo Air 6 engine that's paired with a 2-speed Power Glide automatic transmission. And the best part, it's all stock, which is a real rarity for a car of this age. But here's the thing, the seller does mention that the engine is making a strange noise. They don't have the time to look into it, which is why they're selling it as a project car. And while that might be a deal breaker for some, it could also be an opportunity for the right buyer to get their hands on a real piece of automotive history. The seller is asking $5,800 for this Corvair, which might seem like a lot for a project car, but when you consider the rarity, condition, and potential of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. And if you've got a trailer, you can take it home and start working on it right away. Now, I do have to mention that the seller is open to trades, which could be an opportunity for someone with another classic car to swap for this Corvair. But if you're looking to buy outright, you'll want to have the cash ready to go. So if you're in the market for a classic American convertible with a ton of potential, this 1968 Chevrolet Corvair might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, rarity, and potential that makes it a true collector's item. Of course, as with any project car, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But based on what I'm seeing here, this Corvair looks like it's ready for its next chapter. So what are you waiting for, classic car fans? If you've got the cash and the trailer, this 1968 Chevrolet Corvair could be the project car of your dreams. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Reach out to the seller today and see if you can make a deal. Who knows, you might just end up with a piece of automotive history that you'll treasure for years to come. 16. We've got a real treat for you, a 1984 Ford Thunderbird that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this thing is a real beauty. First off, let's talk about the mileage. With only 62,000 original miles on the odometer, this Thunderbird has been barely broken in. That's the kind of low mileage you want to see in a classic car, and it's a real testament to how well this car has been cared for over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 5.0 V8 engine that's ready to roar to life. And with an automatic transmission, this Thunderbird is a breeze to drive. Whether you're cruising down the highway or just running errands around town, this car is sure to put a smile on your face. But what really sets this Thunderbird apart is the overall condition. The seller describes it as being in great shape for its year, and based on the description, I have to agree. Both the interior and exterior are clean, which is a real rarity for a car that's almost 40 years old. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, a Thunderbird from the 80s? Is that really a classic car? And while it might not have the same cachet as some of the older models, there's no denying that this Thunderbird has a style and charm all its own. It's the kind of car that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. Of course, all this style and low mileage doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $6,500 for this Thunderbird, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the condition, rarity, and potential of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. The seller doesn't mention anything about the title status, but based on the information provided, it seems like a safe bet that this Thunderbird has a clean title. That's always a good sign when you're buying a classic car, as it means there are no hidden surprises waiting for you down the line. So if you're in the market for a classic American car that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1984 Ford Thunderbird might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of style, low mileage, and overall condition that makes it a true collector's item. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision, but based on what I'm seeing here, this Thunderbird looks like it's ready to hit the road and start turning heads. And 17, we've got a real gem for you, a 1964 Mercury Comet that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this thing is a real beauty. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good, and based on the description, it's clear that this Comet has been well cared for over the years. It's all original, which is a real rarity for a car that's almost 60 years old, and with recent replacements of the carburetor, fuel pump, fuel relay, battery, and a tune-up, this Comet is ready to hit the road. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder 200 CID engine that puts out 116 horsepower. And while that might not sound like a lot by today's standards, it's more than enough to get this Comet moving. Plus, with an automatic transmission, this car is a breeze to drive. But what really sets this Comet apart is the overall condition. The seller describes it as beautiful, both inside and out. And based on the photos, I have to agree, the black paint job is absolutely stunning, and it really makes this Comet stand out from the crowd. The seller also mentions that all the lights, wipers, and gauges work, which is a real testament to how well this car has been maintained. And with good compression, brakes, and tires, this Comet is ready to hit the road whenever you are. Now, I do have to mention one thing. The seller lists the drive as FWD, which is almost certainly a typo. The Mercury Comet was a rear-wheel drive car, so I'm assuming they meant to put RWD instead. Of course, all this originality and beauty doesn't come cheap. The seller is asking $11,000 for this Comet, which might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you consider the rarity, condition, and potential of this particular example, it starts to look like a pretty solid deal. And with the seller open to offers, there might be some wiggle room on the price. The seller doesn't mention anything about the title status, but based on the information provided, it seems like a safe bet that this Comet has a clean title. That's always a good sign when you're buying a classic car, as it means there are no hidden surprises waiting for you down the line. So if you're in the market for a classic American sedan that's sure to turn heads and get people talking, this 1964 Mercury Comet might just be the one for you. It's got the perfect combination of originality, condition, and style that makes it a true collector's item. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a thorough inspection before making a final decision. But based on what I'm seeing here, this Comet looks like it's ready to hit the road and start turning heads. So what are you waiting for, classic car fans? If you've got the cash and the garage space, this 1964 Mercury Comet could be the car of your dreams. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Reach out to the seller today and see if you can make a deal. Who knows? You might just end up with a piece of automotive history that you'll treasure for years to come. 18. We've got a real treat for you, a 1977 Lincoln Mark that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is being offered at a price of $10,000, and from what the seller tells us, it seems to be in pretty good shape. Now let's dive into the details. The seller mentions that this Lincoln Mark V has just 57,000 actual miles on the odometer, which is quite low for a car of this age. That's a good sign, as it suggests the vehicle hasn't been overused or abused. The seller also points out that the car has recently received a new battery, electronic control module, and vinyl top, which are all important components to keep this classic running smoothly and looking sharp. The ad states that the overall condition of the car is good, and while we don't have any photos to confirm this, we'll take the seller's word for it. It's important to note that good condition can mean different things to different people, so it's always a good idea to inspect the car in person before making a purchase. Other key details mentioned in the ad include that the car runs on gas and has a clean title, which means there are no outstanding liens or legal issues with the vehicle. The transmission is also listed as automatic, which is a plus for those who prefer a more laid-back driving experience. One thing to keep in mind is that the seller seems pretty firm on the price and the availability of the car. They make it clear that they will take down the ad when the car is sold and won't respond to inquiries about whether the car is still available. This could be a sign that the seller is confident in the value of the car and doesn't want to deal with any lowball offers or tire kickers. Overall, this 1977 Lincoln Mark V seems like a solid classic car opportunity for the right buyer. The low mileage and recent updates are definitely appealing, but as with any used car purchase, it's crucial to do your due diligence and thoroughly inspect the vehicle before making a decision. If you're in the market for a vintage luxury ride, this could be the one for you. 19. I've got an exciting find from Craigslist that's sure to turn heads, a 1967 Oldsmobile Cutlass. This classic beauty is up for grabs at $11,500. And from the seller's description, it sounds like it's in excellent condition. Let's start with the heart of this beast. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 330 cubic inch V8 engine that churns out an impressive 320 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 360 lb-ft of torque at 3,600 RPM. That's some serious muscle. The seller also mentions that the car runs strong, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're dealing with a classic ride. Moving on to the exterior, the seller notes that the Cutlass has a straight body and a nice white paint job. It's always a relief to hear that a classic car has been well maintained and hasn't been in any major accidents. The American racing wheels and new tires are also a great touch, giving this Cutlass a sporty and aggressive look. Inside, the seller reports that the interior is clean and the original stereo and gauges are still in place. It's always a bonus when a classic car retains its original features, as it adds to the overall authenticity and charm of the vehicle. Now let's talk about some of the upgrades. The seller mentions that the car has Flowmaster mufflers, which are known for their deep, throaty sound. This is sure to turn heads when you're cruising down the street. The automatic transmission also makes this Cutlass a breeze to drive, whether you're a seasoned pro or a beginner. The seller also notes that the car has 72,000 miles on the odometer, which is relatively low for a vehicle of this age. This suggests that the car has been well cared for over the years and hasn't been driven into the ground. Overall, this 1967 Oldsmobile Cutlass seems like a fantastic find for any classic car enthusiast. The combination of original features, powerful performance, and tasteful upgrades make it a compelling choice. The seller's asking price of $11,500 or best offer seems fair for a car of this caliber, but as always, it's important to inspect the vehicle in person and take it for a test drive before making a final decision. If you're in the market for a vintage muscle car that's sure to impress, this 1967 Oldsmobile Cutlass is definitely worth checking out. 20, I've got a real gem to share with you, a 1981 Chevrolet El Camino that's currently up for sale on Craigslist. The seller is asking $9,000 for this beauty, and based on the description, it sounds like it could be a steal. First off, let's talk about the condition of this El Camino. The seller states that it's in excellent shape, and from the details provided, it's easy to see why. This truck has been garaged, which means it's been protected from the elements and hasn't been subjected to the wear and tear of daily outdoor parking. That's a huge plus for any classic vehicle. Under the hood, you'll find a 305 V8 engine that's been upgraded with an Edelbrock intake and carburetor. This means the engine is likely breathing better and delivering improved performance compared to stock. The seller also mentions that the El Camino has new Hedman headers and a Flowmaster exhaust system, which should give it a nice throaty rumble and possibly even a few extra ponies. But the upgrades don't stop there. The seller has also replaced the plugs, wires, fan clutch, starter, and alternator, ensuring that this El Camino is in top mechanical shape. It's clear that the owner has put a lot of love and care into this truck. One of the most impressive aspects of this El Camino is the incredibly low mileage. With just 56,144 miles on the odometer, this truck has barely been broken in. That's a real rarity for a vehicle that's over 40 years old, and it suggests that this El Camino has been treated with the utmost care and respect throughout its life. The seller also notes that the El Camino still sports its original paint in a beautiful brown color. It's a testament to the quality of the vehicle and the care it has received that the paint has held up so well over the years. Overall, this 1981 Chevrolet El Camino seems like an absolute gem. The combination of excellent condition, low mileage, and tasteful upgrades make it a compelling choice for any classic car or truck enthusiast. The asking price of $9,000 might seem a bit steep at first glance, but when you consider the rarity and quality of this vehicle, it starts to look like a bargain. Of course, as with any used vehicle purchase, it's always a good idea to inspect the El Camino in person and take it for a test drive before making a final decision. But based on the seller's description, this truck seems like it could be a real winner. If you're in the market for a classic ride that's equal parts style and substance, this 1981 Chevrolet El Camino is definitely worth checking out. As the seller says, this is the way, and we couldn't agree more.